The Department of Art History has now thrived at UCL for 50 years. For most of that time, it has been at Gordon Square, an area of Bloomsbury that we now share with Birkbeck History of Art and with the Warburg Institute. Of course, it is well known that Bloomsbury was home to many nonconformist communities, including intellectuals and artists. Our history has always had a strong connection to social change and urgent moments of history.
The 1930s was really an important moment for art history because of the developments in Germany and Austria with the Third Reich. Many intellectuals had to flee Germany. Among not only the people, but really the institutions that came to London was the library of Abi Warburg, a German scholar who had already died by that moment, but who had built up a library and research institute in Hamburg that had introduced radical new ways of dealing with images. Collaborators of this library and research institute actually moved the entire library and themselves to London. And this whole generation of people then really changed the intellectual map of what art history was in the UK.
Ernst Gombrich, who was director of the Warburg and also for a time taught at the Slade, was working for the BBC. He monitored German radio broadcasts for the British and informed the government about the death of Hitler. So these figures are having a very important role outside of art history, but I think also we're seeing people like Leopold Ettlinger, who is the first head of department of art history at UCL. He was taking care of refugee children during the war, and others were involved in spy networks. Anthony Blunt is perhaps the most well-known example of an art historian spy, but art historians are very much at the coalface when it comes to political intrigue.
Our history developed at UCL initially within the Slade School of Fine Art. What's really interesting about Ettlinger's work with the art students in the Slade is that while we know from archives and evidence that he was very committed to modern art and was very interested in art as a practice, that in fact he more and more argued for the importance of history, not separate from art practice, but interconnected. And that was the big moment of establishing our history in a way as something that was distinctive both from art appreciation and art practice.
This document is great. It's a sort of declaration of independence of the discipline here at UCL. History of art has for a long time been recognized as an academic subject in its own right. Several of the new universities now starting in this country are setting up departments, and European as well as American universities have them already.
So there in the middle of 1965 is the strong feeling that a university, or a college as it was called, like UCL, needed for academic as well as institutional interests to have its own art history department. This department never saw itself as a teaching feeder for other parts of the university, but really embedded research right from its moment of formation.
The political and social changes of the 1960s, movements such as Marxism and feminism that really had a huge impact on the way art history is being thought of and also in the ways it's being taught. This was particularly strong in this department, and it continues to be an important part of how we ask questions within art history. And these questions then, of course, have developed into new concerns, and this is, for example, about issues of race, colony, globalization, sexual identity, animality. So really all the kind of social questions that have been raised since the 1980s.
One of the ways in which the discipline has really fundamentally changed in recent decades has been to go beyond the traditional art historical canon, and that's by bringing in different kinds of material, thinking about visual and material cultures more broadly.
With the emergence of digital technologies and the proliferation of visual images, art history is grappling with new questions and is as relevant as ever. Nowadays, we work as much with science and technology studies as with the Slade School of Fine Arts, where we started 50 years ago.
History of Art offers the opportunity to rethink our world and to consider how art and visual cultures shape our future as much as our past.